So, as I was saying, value is defined by the combination of business outcomes, customer perspectives, and customer preferences, right? That is what produces value. If we develop a product that does the thing that a customer wants, we've produced a positive business outcome. But we can't necessarily do that unless it also meets how they expect or they perceive our company. If we have a bad perception, right, then that's not producing value, and we may be out of the market because like we're perceived as buggy, as just out to get your money, all these sorts of things. Or we haven't met their preferences, right? How they want that utility to be delivered to them, or meeting their preferences of style. This would be like Apple sort of thing. A lot of preferences and perception in there. Similar business outcome to other computers, but boy, they really pump up these, and this produces business. This produces value. So we are looking to optimize the customer's value, and we're looking to optimize our ability to capture value. That is, the value capture is how much of that value that we produce do we get to retain. So if I produce a service for you and I only get 1% markup, that's not a very good business value capture, right? I want good margin on the other side, but I'm still producing enough value for you that you're buying my service, okay? Yeah. So we have this service strategy, which is driving our concepts of how we're going to attack the market space, and these sorts of things. And we're going to establish plans. We're going to identify patterns of business activity, or a model, as it were. How are we going to provide that service? Are we going to provide it in like a ad hoc, a la carte, or we're providing this as a software as a service, or we're providing this as various models, demand service. We're trying to identify what would constitute a good service, and we are adding that into a service pipeline. The service pipeline is designed to identify which services are going to maximize our potential value for the customer and our value capture for ourselves, and identify that service that we want to do. Okay, so these different ideas and different opportunities are coming into this service pipeline. Now, this needs space. As they come into the service pipeline, there is going to be a point in which we determine that we want to do the work. And so we're going to now initiate or hand off into a different phase, which is called service design. All right. This service design phase is intended to identify, after we've established like a business case, we're going to go into, okay, well, how are we going to do this service, right? We're going to identify different things like availability. How available is this service going to be? What's the capacity of this service? What are the different constraints as far as like the implementation? These sorts of design factors. It's kind of pretty straightforward, right? Yeah. But we're going to develop out of this a service design package. DP. that is then handed off and throughout the rest of the product life cycle as a basis of kind of defining what the service is. We're also going to then hand it off to what is called service transition. Now I'm kind of breezing through a lot of these things. I just want to get you a high-level concept of how these services are developed and then deployed and retired, and then we're going to get into more of the agile stuff. Right now, what I'm covering is ITIL. I didn't actually explain that, but ITIL is a standard for IT service management, right? And it's expressed terrible job of drawing this. You got the strategy here, which is the heart of it. You've got design, transition, operation, and then throughout is continuous improvement. Okay, it's kind of around everything. So we're going into service transition where we're going to identify how are we going to deploy this thing, right? And what we're establishing is a protocol of how we're going to do change, how we're going to get it into the customer's hands, all of these sorts of things. We're also doing things like adding it to the service catalog. So, I want to know what kind of services you as a company offers. Well, here you go, right? Here's our services. Things along those lines. Then we go into service operation, where now we've got the service deployed, the product deployed. We're maintaining it. We're dealing with incidents, with escalations, various things along those lines. We're monitoring our service level agreements, if applicable, and then at some point we're going to transition the service, and it actually goes back into service transition to transition it out and retire it, right? And throughout all of this is continuous improvement. Now, why did I go into all of that in talking about software development lifecycle? Well, so we have to keep a very high level concept of what a business is doing so we don't lose context in when we start talking about software development. It's so easy to slip into we're talking about how to develop this one product. Well, but how does that fit within the vision of that project? How does that project fit within the vision of the program? How does that program fit within the vision of the portfolio? And then how does a portfolio fit within the overall business strategy, right? We need to be able to keep this high level contextualization, because if we develop a product and it may be a great product, but it doesn't really move our business strategy forward, are we succeeding? Probably not, right? We're succeeding on a micro level maybe, we're meeting deadlines, but if we don't produce the value that we were after, and we don't get the value capture, then the business doesn't do well, right? So, if we were to then kind of look at that, we would have these layers, and we'd have business strategy, we're going to have the portfolio strategy, we're going to have the program strategy. And I term strategy, but it's also the objects themselves. A project. I can write. and then we may have a product. Right? So we establish a business strategy by looking at market space, patterns of activity, the people that we're trying to satisfy, the business models, demand management. We deal with business relationship management, all of these different things. Then we get into the portfolio strategy. Okay, so what is our overall infrastructure look like? How are we sourcing? How are we producing common resources across the portfolio? How are we maximizing value in each of these? Program is going to be a common grouping of projects. So they're, something along the lines of, I'm going to develop a series of pens. I might have different projects of different types of pens, but they're all pens. And portfolio might be that I am also providing other office goods like scissors and blah, 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 and, various things. And that's fitting my business strategy of being a office supply maker, or something to that effect. And my project might be this one pen. And ultimately I end up with a product. Okay? That right there. So